Safaricom have a policy of paying 80% of their net profits only. Sorry, wow. So good morning. Let's take that again. Safaricom have a policy of paying 80% of their wow. Take two. Safaricom have a policy of paying 80% of their net profit as dividends. That's the company policy. Good. Two key announcements. The major announcement that has come from Safaricom this year is that they won that tender or that entry into Ethiopia. Analysts looked at it and said, because of that investment and because they have to build that infrastructure, then they might not pay 80% of their net profit as dividends. Let's look at that figure. It is 909.5 billion, about 8.5 million US dollars. That's the investment that they need to put in Ethiopia for the next 10 years. So some analysts say, well, they might not pay that 80% of their net profit. Safaricom has come out and said, it's not going to change. We are still going to pay 80% of our net profits starting next year, and that the investment in Ethiopia is not going to really deter the company from paying that 80% net profit into dividends. Good. Let's look at why Safaricom might actually be able to pay that 80% despite their investments in Ethiopia. Good. Let's look at that service revenue profile for 2021 from Safaricom, if we can. Rishi, that's your cue to give us that data. All right, good. Service revenue, 200. You can actually see exactly what we're comparing this for financial year 2020 and financial year 2021, and you can actually see exactly where we are in terms of that service revenue already at par, almost at par on exactly where we are right now in that service revenue in 2021. You can see exactly where it is moving toward. And if you look at that total revenue at the same comparison again at this time last year, you can exactly see where we were in terms of total revenue and where Safaricom are right now in terms of total revenue, telling you that things are pretty much taking in their direction, but they're yet to hit what they got in terms of service revenue in financial year 2020. And now we're comparing at the exact same period last year to where we are this year as well. Let's see exactly where we are in the other data set this morning from Safaricom. Good. If you look at exactly where they are, and we're looking at a service revenue composition in 2021 so far, and you will see where we are. M-Pesa revenue is leading at 34% at par with a voice revenue again at 34%. We have mobile data revenue coming in at 19%, messaging revenue 6%, and mobile incoming revenue at 4%. Other mobile services revenue really taking the list at 3%. And you actually see that was the conversation point. There is a bigger stress on diversifying this revenue for Safaricom, and for the very first time we're seeing that voice revenue, which is not really a big stress for Safaricom, really being at par with that M-Pesa revenue, because we do know under this segment for M-Pesa revenue, Safaricom actually do command 99.9% of our business-to-business transactions in the economy. Good. Let's cross over and then really analyze where we are in terms of this service revenue, and we're comparing that from quarter one of 2021 to quarter two of 2021. You can see that mobile data revenue, if you look at exactly where it is, they've had that marginal increase of 0.3 in terms of those millions. You can say they are actually at something like 300,000 on top of whatever they were getting. M-Pesa revenue, again, you can actually see that quick jump to quarter two. They were at 16.5, now they are 19.5, sort of talking about how businesses in the economy are getting back to where they need to be, or the economy is slowly responding. That's why you have an increase in terms of that revenue for M-Pesa. And then service revenue as well, also pointing northwards. Yes, there's that jump again from 56.8 in terms of millions to 61.6. That's how you look at it as well. And that's exactly where it stands if you compare quarter two versus quarter one in terms of that service revenue. Let's cross over and see again how things are. That is financial year of 2021 versus 2020, and then let's compare that as well and see exactly where we are. Voice revenue has gone down by negative 4.6%, messaging revenue negative 11.7%, mobile data revenue has gone up by 11.5%. M-Pesa revenue is really recovering again after we saw that dip in business activity in the country due to the coronavirus pandemic at negative 2.1%. Mobile incoming revenue 11.7%, and other mobile service revenue at 7.5%. Now that is how Safaricom look. This morning we're going to ask that question of if indeed it is true, or if it's possible that Safaricom will not change that policy for paying 80% of their net profits as dividends. Good. This morning, KEBS has flagged two companies that import vehicles into the country. Now, the two companies blacklisted by KEBS, includes, that is the East African Automobiles, that is the EAA, that has been given a ban for 3 years, and the reason for that, it is forged documents. Good, I'm going to tell you how they forged those documents. The other company that has been also blacklisted by KEBS, it is the Auto Terminal Japan Limited, ATJ, and the false documents docket as well. So let's talk about that. These two companies, if you look at exactly the tenders they're given, they are the ones that are actively participating in vehicle inspections before they come into the country. Now this specific one, East African Automobiles, this suspension for 3 years, they're saying that they have no physical infrastructure in Japan, South Africa, Arab Emirates, and Thailand. Good. ATJ as well, they do not have that physical infrastructure as well in South Africa, Arab Emirates, and Thailand. Now, why this is important, we do know that these companies are the ones that have the standards for vehicle inspections before they come into the country. That immediately means that we do have a challenge if you're really trying to get your vehicles from these specific countries, because then they will not be allowed to come in. They have to meet the standards of inspection before they come into the country. There's a looming crisis because now KEBS has to go back again and wait for tenders to come in, pre-inspection to come in, before we can actually start talking about the vehicles coming from these specific destinations into the country. Now, DCI took up that case and they're calling for criminal investigations into one of the advocates of EAA who they claim had forged documents of the court. Now we're going to see exactly what this does and what KEBS is going to do in the meantime, because these imports have to keep on coming in and the country does really rely on these companies for those vehicle inspections. Now, let's talk about tourism for just a minute this morning, because we do know that they were one of those exposed sectors of the economy. That's the tourism and hospitality sector into the country. Now, let's talk about that for a minute, because if you look at exactly what the Tourism Research Institute is talking about this morning, they're saying that the average expenditure on trips fell from 44,043 right, all the way from 2019 to last year, or this year, standing at 27,545. let's look at that trend where the rain really started beating, and we're going to look at that trend in terms of visitor arrivals into Africa. And you can see that that in 2019 we were on a high, but then 2020 came and we dropped by a huge margin, and this is because of the coronavirus pandemic. So a lot of restrictions in and out. We saw a lot of people stick within their countries and restrict that movement out of fear that they actually might be infected with the coronavirus pandemic. That is sort of coming back to where it's supposed to be, but it's not really there yet if you're speaking to most analysts. Now, let's look at where we are in the country. Now, recreational expenditure fell 22%. Expenditure on drinks fell 13%. Transport fell 10%. Accommodation fell 5%. That is according to the Tourism Research Institute. Now, Nairobi visitors contributed majority of domestic tourism at 51%. Mombasa 12.3%. Kiambu 6.3%, Kisumu 2.8%, Nakuru 2.6%, and Kajiado 2.6%. All right, that really forms the counties with the least number of visitors as well. And the Tourism Research Institute is saying also that if you look at where we are by those numbers, then domestic tourism is exactly what is going to ride the tourism and hospitality sector out of the hole that they find themselves in right now, because they're saying they don't expect that this situation is going to correct anytime soon. Are you a domestic tourist? Are you part of these numbers? Did you go to Naivasha? If indeed, congratulations, you're part of these numbers and you're trying to really get the economy running. If not, yes, then do something about it as well. At Metropole TVK across your social media platforms, I am at Kiaga Simba. Official business begins right now.